Please watch the video until the end, every second matters. Chapter 1, The Road In. I remember the snow like a sheet of white glass. The county road into Briar's Hollow had become a ribbon cut through a world of frozen trees, and my van's headlights nicked at the shapes of trunks that looked, briefly, like statues. I had been the new maintenance foreman for the utility co-op only a month, a job that put me on call in places the GPS treated as suggestions. The Hollow called me at 3 in the morning. When I pushed open the diner door, the warmth hit like a slap. A dozen faces turned. They were bundled and furious, and relieved in equal measure. A snowdrift had taken the power lines and blown the town into darkness. The mayor, thin, always smelling faintly of cigarette smoke, had declared the community center the triage and meeting point. They wanted me to come steady the generator, to promise them heat and light and something to hold on to. There was a man leaning against the coat rack who looked like he had slept in his boot. A woman with a red scarf nailed tight to her chin. An old man with a hunting knife at his belt who everyone, impossibly, still called Document. I felt eyes wander over me like a second search for the problem. Could the electrician be trusted? Had the roads been salted? Who had the ability to fix things when the sky ripped itself apart? We laughed to keep from thinking about the shape outside. We joked with the waitress, drank coffee, kept our hands busy. But at the far table someone tapped his fingers like a metronome and kept looking at the window where the storm made the world flat and featureless. Chapter 2. The Body in the Snow. It took until noon for the storm to pretend it'll relent. The plow made a surrendering scrape down Main Street, and folks poured out into the white, coiled like animals sniffing the air. Someone called out, sharp, thin, and then there were 3 or 4 running toward the ridge above the hollow. We found him at the tree line. His face was a concert of the wrong, jaw unhinged like a hinge had failed, fingers gone to slivers, clothes shredded in a pattern that didn't match a fall or a fight with another human. Tracks circled the body and then vanished, like someone had made the earth hold its breath and walked away. At first, the town convened around the grisly center like a jury. Animal, Doc said, but his voice had the hollow echo of someone speaking for the shape of the thing and not the thing itself. The mayor would not let anyone go into town unsupervised. The storm and the missing power blurred the lines between prudence and paranoia. People started naming each other with eyes, as if accusation could be a coat you buttoned up against cold. The sheriff, new, alert, with a badge that fit like a child's toy, declared they would stay put in the community center until they could get a proper search together. But there is a hunger in people when a body is there and the world outside is white and loud. They wanted answers and they wanted someone to blame. Chapter 3. Faces like suspects. We sat around folding tables scarred by bingo nights and school fundraisers and tried to make a town decision with the sober heads we had left. Someone suggested we play a game of identification, a simple test to see who kept odd hours, who had old bruises, who had told jokes too meanly. It was a ridiculous little trial, an invented tradition that gave the town the illusion of process. I watched them. Laura, who ran the bakery, kept pulling her fingers away from her palms in tiny, nervous washes. Miles, the hardware owner, laughed too loud about traps and dogs. A teenage boy in a knit cap had mud on one sleeve, but said nothing when asked where he'd been. Habits, I thought, are often accused of being guilt. Around midnight, the conversation curdled. Secrets slid out like slippery fish. The mayor admitted to loaning his truck one night to a friend who liked moonlit hunts in the wood. Miles confessed to setting traps beyond the town boundary without municipal approval. There were old squabbles, debts, jealousies, affairs, none of them proof of anything more than human ugliness. And yet the town tightened like a fist. I felt ridiculous watching it unfold. I was an outsider who had only fixed a line and checked a fuse. But the more I listened, the more the simple facts wobbled. There were holes big enough to crawl through in every alibi. Chapter 4. The Howls and the Trap. On the third night, the town decided to make a plan. They would go out in pairs with lights and shotguns borrowed from the hardware store. I went because I could solder a battery pack in my sleep, and because my hands wanted to hold something useful. We set a trap along the ridge using a lantern and some meat from the diner. Primitive, homely, ugly in its simplicity. The night pressed around us. The lantern light made the snow look like flesh. Trees cast teeth-shaped shadows. At first we only heard the wind. Then, from the far valley, an upturned sound rose, a call that curved around the bones like a hand. An answering chorus bent and split. Someone whispered that it was impossible, but our lights flicked in unison to where the tracks ended at the thinned brush, and then continued into nothing. There was a sound at our back, a running step, a slap of bare feet on crusted snow. We spun. A figure collapsed in the circle of light, clutching something to his chest. He was a man from the diner, Joe, who had laughed about storms like they were minor inconveniences. He cried then, tears steaming in the cold, and his breath came in little edged gasps. "Something's wrong," he said. "I think I saw it, but it wasn't right." We saw eyes. His face was raw with fear, and there was a smear on his wrist. I hoped, fool's hope, was jam. We questioned him until his teeth chattered and the sky filled with a long, lonely howl that curled the hair at my neck like fingers. Chapter 5. The night I killed a man. The plan was to flush the thing out by nightfall. A team of 6 set off, and my hands shook the whole walk over. We moved on tracks fresh with grainy snow and old with drift. We found a den, or what passed for one. A hollow under a wind-thrown pine crusted with hair and blood. There was an animal smell that clawed at my throat. Then there was movement. It was fast and terrible, a blur of fur and teeth. I raised the shotgun and fired because you raise a weapon and wait for the recoil to tell you how wrong you've been. The sound of the blast is a new memory on my skin. When the smoke cleared, there was a man where the blur had been. He was not the werewolf I'd expected. He was human, and the world tilted. He died looking at me like I had failed him. He was clutching a torn photograph to his chest. In the picture, a woman smiled with a child. People wept. People cursed. I wanted to say I was sorry, but words stick to the inside of your mouth when the line between what you feared and what you did snapped. We dragged him back to town. Some wanted to burn his house down. Some wanted a court. The sheriff put a blanket over him and called for calm. The mayor reassured everyone that order would follow. No one could do anything about the howl that had woken the next morning and hung in the air like a question. Chapter 6. When the moon turns me. We buried him under the east knoll because the ground had thawed where the wind had been cruel. We wrapped him in a tarp and said words that resembled mercy. But the town's unease hardened into something older. Rumors of curses and bloodlines wove through the aisles of the grocery, sat in the pews of the church, threaded into the stitches of children's mittens. I kept busy for a week. I fixed the generator, rewired the diner oven, tightened bolts on the plow. But the hair at my arms stood like the seeds on a plant, uneasy. Once, walking home under a thin moon, I felt a pain in my jaw like a seed pushing up. At night, I dreamed of teeth where teeth shouldn't be. When I rose, a taste of iron lived behind my teeth. We had convinced ourselves of order, until the new tracks appeared, small and delicate and made by something larger than a fox but more stealthy than a man. And then, in the mirror appointment, when I scratched an itch at the base of my neck, I found a wound like a kiss. My hands shook. At first I denied it to myself, then to others. I blamed stress and the cold and the beer. The final thing that turned everything I thought I knew was not a howl but a child's lullaby. One night, I woke to a soft hum outside my window. I lifted the curtain and saw a shape moving across the street, tall, lithe, covered in shadow and fur. It stopped, turned, and for one terrible beat I saw the face of the man we had killed, this time with the wrong angle to his jaw and the glint of something wild in his eyes. When it looked at me, the world didn't so much stop as fold. I felt something shift inside me and a slow, very ancient hunger unbolt and stand. I did not want to hurt anyone. I wanted light and a hand and words that would set it back down like a cat on the floor. I did not get that. They found my boots by the river the next morning, and pieces of a coat. The town decided the creature had left. The mayor gave a speech about resilience, and the sheriff tightened his jaw. They did not find the thing that had been me the night the moon took me, because once it happens the body is only a place memory leaves. So here I am, telling you a story with my voice. Maybe it is penance. Maybe it is warning. Maybe it is both. I do not know if this reaches you as grief or as confession. I can tell you that Briar's Hollow never recovered fully. People left in the spring and others stayed and built new fences and learned to lock their doors earlier. The rumor was spread that the killer had been a traveler, someone passing through. The truth is slipperier. Sometimes, when the sky is a near white soft thing and the wind wagged its fingers at the trees, I can feel the old world scrape at the inside of my skull. I worry about the nights. I check the locks. I tell myself I have it under control. But the moon is patient. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, leave a comment, and share the video with friends.